do you find that special place to be with God?
For some, it's the ocean.
For some, it's the Midwest Plains.
For some, it's in other parts of the world.
For some, it's their prayer closet.
Or the sanctuary of their home.
And yet, for some, it's the majesty of his mountains. We're on location today, coming to you from the Rocky Mountain National Park right here in
Colorado.
So thank you for tuning in to Live Life in the Spirit. You know, the psalmist also found himself needing times of refreshment and relaxation. Maybe you can relate to that. I know for us it's been really crazy this last year. It's been kind of a whirlwind. Sometimes with the pull from everybody, your family, your friends, your job. If you have little ones that are constantly hanging on your leg.
Or big ones that are constantly hanging on your leg.
Sometimes life just seems like it's going by so fast, and we don't take that time to just stop and refresh ourselves. Well, this week we're going to actually be at a wonderful continuing education conference, which is Prophecy Watchers right here in Colorado Springs. So we're going to probably do a few different shootings from here in the Garden of the Gods, and just wanted to bring nature to you, but to remind you that even David, as crazy as his life was, even when he was on the run, he took the time to sit in the presence of God.
From Psalms 144, verse 5, Bow down your heavens, O Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains, and they shall smoke.
It's talking about the majesty even bowing down the mountains.
Psalms 46, verse 1 says, Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains be shaken and slip into the heart of the seas. Just a good reminder that even with the enormity of the mountains, our God is bigger. And so we really truly have nothing to fear.
And it's so quiet. You get the water, always love being around the water. But sometimes the ocean, you hear the crashing of the waves, and it's, if you're looking for that place of solitude and quietness, you can't always find it.
But here,
you know, in the Bible, mountains can actually symbolize the nearness of God because they extend towards heaven, and they surpass the ordinary of humanity. They can also represent the divine inspiration, and they are often the destination of pilgrimages for spiritual elevation and transcendence. You know, I think of Moses. Where was it that he met God?
On top
Besides
of
the burning bush.
on
Yep.
top of the mountain.
It was Elijah who God hid in the cleft of the rock with his hand.
And gave him a place to rest.
And it wasn't until the still small voice that he actually heard the voice of God.
Yeah, it wasn't in the storm. It wasn't in the
Wind, the rain.
It was the quietness. Well, and even a lot of the big things with Jesus, even on the mountain, that's where he was transfigured.
Mount Hermon. Lots of things happened on Mount Hermon. And Mount Zion, and that's ultimately, and on the Mount of Olives. Boy, everywhere we kind of
All the big
experience God.
stuff is on the mountains.
And it says, I shall go forth. This is from actually Isaiah 55. For you shall go out with joy and be led out with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth into singing before you. And all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. And are you singing the song? Fields of the trees shall clap their hands. You don't know that song?
I don't know that song, so I can't be singing
And we
it.
shall go out with joy. Yeah, and then you go faster and faster. We'll have to do that for church.
Yeah.
Some of you will probably know that song.
Yes.
I'm sure you're singing it right now. Well, so my shirt, I wore this in honor. So my life verse is Matthew 21:21. It's, Jesus says, if you have faith, even so much as a mustard seed, say to this mountain, it'll be cast into the sea, and it shall. There is so much meaning in that verse on so many levels. Well, we can take it as just even the slightest little amount of faith can move obstacles. I've seen a lot of sermons on that. But actually it's so much deeper than that and broader. As we know that most of the times in the Bible, when it talks about mountains, it's talking about the angelic realm. And if we know where Jesus said it and what he was facing, he was sitting on the Mount of Olives facing Mount Hermon when he told the disciples this. He says, if you say to this mountain, and that mountain of Mount Hermon represented what? The fallen realm, the angelic realm. He's telling him nothing is impossible. No, just earthly obstacles, but even the spiritual obstacles that are going to head in. We know that any time that you are on the right path, that's when Satan likes to throw every obstacle at you possible. So Jesus knew what was coming with the disciples and what obstacles that they were going to be facing, far more than physical, but it was completely on a spiritual level. And there was going to be multiple mountains thrown in their way. But what he was reminding them was to keep their eye on, and that was him, and it was the faith. You know, I can't help but think that it wasn't too terribly long after Jesus' encounter with Peter on the water, when he said to him, "O ye of little faith," and he reached out his hand and he grabbed for Peter. And shortly after that he's sitting on this, knowing that Peter is going to be tested beyond, and he says, "Have faith, just even of a mustard seed, and those obstacles will be moved." What obstacles have you had in your life?
Well, that's a good question. You know, it's been a time, the last year and a half, I've really focused a lot more on following God's plan for my life and being on the right path. And because of that, there have been a lot of obstacles thrown my way. And I can say with full confidence, I would not have overcome any of them on my own. God has been gracious. And as long as I have kept the faith and continued to just ask for his guidance and ask to, I guess, for protection and some different things, then things have happened and moved and fallen into place that I could never have done on my own. And so it is one of the difficult things sometimes about following God and living right, at least trying to, God doesn't promise us an easy life with that. But he promises to be with us and to get us through it. For me, when I've been through difficult times, coming to a place like this and having the opportunity to just be surrounded by all that he has created and its peace and its tranquility and its size and its magnitude, I always feel very humbled and very small in the mountains. I'm just reminded, like, he made all of this. He's got me, and he knows my name. I think about that from Revelation, and he documents every one of our tears. And our prayers are lifted up.
For those that are looking for a sanctuary, you don't have to come to the Rocky Mountain National Park, but find that quiet place. It's so easy to look at the Ten Commandments and go, "Oh, yeah. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy." But if you're like me as a pastor, it's kind of hard to do. How do you have that rest? So we'll take a different day. Well, until there's a funeral almost every week, or there's a wedding, or there's something else. There's always something. And it's very easy to not stop and take that moment. Take that moment of rest. Take that moment of quietness. Take that moment to just breathe in God's presence. Because it's the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, that we breathe in, that we exhale back into the rest of the world and into our ministry.
And it allows us to recharge and be able to continue to have those times where there isn't as much time for rest. And even if you can't take it a whole day, finding those quiet moments and those still small times to encounter that still small voice.
I love the analogy that they always tell of the cup, that you keep dipping from your cup to give to everybody else, but then when it's empty, if you don't refill it, there's nothing left to give.
And you want to make sure you're filling it with the right things so that you're then giving good out.
Sometimes that busyness can be what's filling our cup so much that then it leaves us totally depleted to be able to give back to others.
It's true.
So thank you for joining us for this little shortened episode as we are on location. And stay tuned. There'll be several others. We may even put this together as all one video together. That'll be kind of fun. Snapshots from the trip. And we are here.
Lynn, who's behind the camera, and
she'll definitely be up in all the selfies.
That's right.
That we got to go to Israel with. So we're so excited that we can share this. Until next time, Shalom. Hi, we're coming to you today on location from the Garden of the Gods
in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
We've had some pictures we're going to put up here of some fun stuff that we've seen and done, and this is a place that people come from all over. They just love to take selfies and pictures of all these wonderful rock formations. And the theme that I was noticing, we were thinking of two themes. The first theme was
was finding beauty in unexpected places.
Which is really what this garden is, because it's just mountains and trees, and I mean, it's all what Colorado kind of looks like.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, just here in the middle of nowhere, you have this beautiful, totally different landscape.
And these incredible red rock formations, very unexpected.
So the other thing that I thought of, besides the beauty part, was everybody is coming to this balanced rock formation. And the big thing is to come and then get underneath. We even got Kristen to do it. So it looks like you're holding up the rock. So everybody comes up here so that way they can get their picture holding up the rock, showing how strong they are. And I thought about the strength. Isn't that what people are always looking for in life? Where do we go to find our strength? Where does our help come from? Kind of goes along with my blog.
It does.
That I have. Where do you go to find strength? Even if you have to fake it to make it. Which is kind of what these pictures are, of course. It's just fun.
I guarantee I wasn't holding that rock up.
It's just fun, but it gives us a sense of, look what I did. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we need that to get through those really, really hard times in life. Those times when we're feeling really weak instead of strong.
It's true. And hey, the rock is a good place to lay your foundation.
It is. There's so many hymns that talk about rock and strength. Mighty fortress is our God. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness.
The church's one foundation is Jesus Christ our Lord.
David had a whole bunch of psalms that talked about where does my help come from.
He did.
The rock that he stood upon. Mm-hmm. When times where he felt honestly quite weak. And he just did not feel like he had the strength to go on. And maybe even the small little rock would be too much for him to even navigate.
Well, that's the amazing thing about David, because he does. I mean, he cries out to God and asks all kinds of questions and shares his weakness and failure. But then he also always ends it with, but I trust in you. And he just always turns it back to God and says, no matter what happens, I wouldn't choose anyone else or any other way.
He knows his strength. And same with beauty. You know, there are many scriptures that talk that while there is mourning at night, there is joy in the morning. And Jesus even reminded the disciples of that, preparing them for what was about to transpire on that day when he knew that he would be crucified and he would be in that dark tomb. Yet, he said, there may be mourning and weeping, but joy comes in the morning, because it was on that third day when the stone was rolled away and there was so much joy. And bewilderment. You know, we have gotten to do a lot of fun things, a lot of first-time things, a lot of adventurous things.
A lot of funny and embarrassing things.
But that's what life's all about.
It is.
Finding the beauty, finding the joy in life. And we don't have to go very far to look for it. You know, we said, man, can you imagine the view out your back window at those majestic mountains every day? And I said, yeah, but I bet for most of the people, they don't even look at them every day. It's just there. It's scenery. And people who say, oh, the plains of the Midwest are so gorgeous. And yet,
when you live there, you just kind of get used to it and take it for granted.
You want the city, and the people in the city, you want the farm. And no matter where you're at in this America or in this world, God has beauty in most unlikely places that stand out.
You know, when you're going through difficult times, we talked about joy in the morning, but just remembering that there is beauty in lots of unexpected places. So if you're suffering, if you're going through grief, if you're going through something difficult, taking small moments to find joy, to find happiness, to find beauty, and those things God puts in our life to get us through the dark times and the difficulty and the sadness.
And if you happen to be going on vacation somewhere in the area this summer, take time to look out those unexpected places, those unexpected beautiful spots that are maybe off the beaten path. Something that just does not belong with everything else, but yet it's God's way of saying, I made this just for you. We're excited because we are about ready to embark on our Prophecy Watchers conference.
That's right.
Right now, and it's really close to here. And so there is a whole slate of about 40 speakers that we are going to get a chance to partake from their knowledge and hear the wonderful words that God has to say in and through each one of them. So I am sure we will come back with our heads about ready to explode.
If the next time we get on here and post something, it makes no sense, it's because we're just
brain fried.
Yes.
So if you have not had a chance to come out to Colorado Springs, I would highly suggest it, and make sure you come to Garden of the Gods. So until next time,
Shalom.
I'm up here at 14,000 feet elevation at Pike's Peak. You know, it's quite interesting that we talked about finding beauty in the unbelievable places. There's a donut shop, actually they have a cafe, up here at the top of Pike's Peak. But that's the big thing. You make it all the way to the top, whether you're hiking or you're driving, and you get a donut. And I thought about the irony of this as Jesus ascended from the Mount of Olives, and I thought about, you know, at high elevation, it takes a lot longer to rise to the occasion. And sometimes for some of us, that's what it takes. It takes a little longer to rise to the occasion. But once we actually make it to the top, once we've gone through those challenges and we've conquered our fears, and we stand at the top, fully risen, oh, it is so sweet. That's good.
That was good. That's cute.
Getting a scene through the donut, the whole of the donut.
Well, hello from over 14,000 feet at the top of Pike's Peak. We are sitting out here nearing the end of our rest and relaxation and also education. And I just, as we were coming up here and I thought about what I wanted to say, this week has reminded me, you know, as women in particular, we have a really hard time taking a break. We feel guilty for resting. We feel mom guilt or wife guilt or friend guilt or fill in the blank guilt to take time to rest and to do things that will fill our cup. And I think as Christian women in particular, you know, you have the ideal Proverbs 31 woman, which we can talk about that a whole nother day. But let me tell you, that is an ideal, not the standard we are to try to live up to. I mean, yes, we'll never get there. But that's okay. Rest, God made it holy. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. He put it in the 10 Commandments from the very beginning. It was part because it is in rest. It is in taking moments to pause that we can really and truly connect with God. And He wants us to do that, and He calls us to do that. Now, when we are down in the trenches and we are working our way up the mountain, He is right there with us, and He tells us that every step of the way. But when we take the time and set aside that time to be still and quiet and to really have the opportunity to encounter the Holy Spirit and to encounter God, that's when amazing things can happen. And those experiences are all throughout the Bible. They're transformative. Those mountaintop experiences are transformative. And we are no less worthy of those experiences than anyone else. And so I just encourage you, find ways, go to the women's conference, do a Bible study, do the girls' weekend or the girls' trip that you've been putting off for 3 years. Don't be someone that works so much that your vacation is all saved up and you have to just roll it over all the time. Or I'm going to take just enough that I can continue earning. That's not what we're called to do. God wants us to experience the fullness of His creation, and we can't do that if we are always in the trenches. It is only by gaining perspective and looking at things. I mean, trust me when I tell you, sitting up here, life is a whole lot different, and the perspective really changes. So allow yourself to come to God in these moments and to encounter Him and be in fellowship, because we are called to keep the Sabbath and make it holy. We are called to rest because in those moments we can truly change our lives. Until next time. Shalom.
You know, there are those moments when God meets His people at those pivotal points in their life on the mountaintop. It's those mountaintop experiences. But that journey can seem really hard, and it can seem long to get to the top. This is on top of Pike's Peak. It's a 14,000 elevation. It's one of 56 in the area, and our friend Lynn Lane has actually scaled 21, so she will tell you that it is not an easy route. But when you make it to the top, the glory of that achievement, the fulfillment that you feel of conquering something that was so hard, something maybe you didn't think you could do. Maybe the journey was like you wanted to stop and you wanted to turn around, you didn't think you could press on, and yet you still stuck with it. The reward far outweighs the challenges. I got to thinking about all the men and women, actually, that met God and had those mountaintop experiences. You know, but when you think about it, even way back with Noah, one of the scariest times in that boat, and yet he felt the security and safety of God in that ark. But where did it rest? It didn't rest in the valley like you would think it would. It rested on Mount Ararat, and they were safe in the cleft of God's hand. And then you think down of Abraham, and Abraham was taken to Mount Moriah, and that's where he was shown the entire expansion of all the land that God was going to give him as he stood under that oak tree. What a sight. We've been there. And then I think of Moses as he stood on top. Before he got to Mount Sinai, though, it was a climb. It said that God sent him and Joshua and the elders, and they all started to climb that mountain. The elders got as far up as they could see God's legs, his feet. And they had supper with God on that mountain. They were in his presence. And Joshua continued to climb up, and he got to see the legs of God with Moses. And then Joshua had to stay there, and Moses continued to go all the way up on Mount Sinai. And it said God there allowed him to be in his presence. And besides receiving the 10 Commandments not once but twice, it said when he came back down, his face was literally changed. He was glowing. He had been in God's glory. I can't imagine what that would have been like. You know, and we go down the way and we see that it was Deborah and Balak who were on the mountaintop. One of the women in the Bible that God used so many of, and it was on the mountaintop, that they defeated the Canaanites. And Elijah went to top of Mount Carmel and he defeated the priests of Baal. It was also on that mountain, not that mountain, but another mountain, that Elijah, he had been running. He had been running for his life, and God took him to this mountain. And it was there that he met him. But he didn't meet him in the mighty rush of the wind that it said it moved stones and it broke stones. It wasn't in the earthquake that followed. It wasn't in the fire. No, God had again protected Elijah in the cleft of the rock. It was in the still small voice. You know, when you sit up here and you see this expanse and you see this beauty, you understand why people say it was those mountaintop experiences. And sometimes there are just no words. Jesus had many mountaintop experiences. Can you imagine what it had to have been like when he was standing up on that high mountain and Satan was showing him all the wonders and the nations and the cities of the world and said, I'll give you all this if you just bow down to me. And then he stood on top of Mount Hermon, at least that's where I think he probably stood, with his closest disciples, as he was transfigured in all of his glory. And he met Elijah and Moses, who had both been mountain toppers. And then it was at the Mount of Olives when Jesus went and had the Olivet discourse that told them what was going to happen. It was on that Mount of Olives that he prayed and he cried out tears of blood. It was on that Mount of Olives that he was arrested, and we believe he was crucified and probably even buried. It was on that same mountain that he ascended in all of his glory. What a mountaintop experience for all who got to witness that. And we know it's going to be on that mountaintop experience that he's coming back down, feet planted on either side, and there will be an earthquake that will divide it into two from his power. What kind of mountaintop experiences have you had? Maybe you haven't had the chance to sit up at 14,000 feet elevation and admire God's glory. Maybe It was a time in your life that you just really felt God. It was a time when you really connected, a time when maybe he had a message for you. Maybe it was a time when you desperately needed to hear his voice, and it wasn't in the rush of the wind and the hurricane and the chaos and the earthquake and the fire and the flood. It was in the still, small voice. It was on that mountaintop that Jesus said to his disciples, if you have faith in me, even just a sliver, as much as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, be moved, be cast into the sea, and it will. So my challenge to you is whatever mountain is standing in front of you, whatever obstacle, whatever challenge right now that is too hard, you don't feel like you could finish the climb, or looks too daunting to even start, stay the course. Keep the faith. Walk by that faith and not by that sight. And God has promised you that he will be with you every step of the way. And when you get to the top, oh, the reward will be so worth it. And you will be able to feel that oneness with God. So until next time, shalom.